The cold wind cut through Tejo's jacket like a knife. He pulled his collar tighter and kept walking through the endless rows of broken ships. Velos 9 was not a place where anyone wanted to be. It was a moon made of garbage, a dumping ground for every wrecked spaceship in the galaxy. Mountains of metal stretched in every direction. The sky was always gray, and the air always smelled like rust and oil. Tejo had been stuck here for 3 months. His transport ship had been taken away because he could not pay his debts. The authorities had left him here with nothing but the clothes on his back and a small bag of tools. They told him he could work off what he owed. They did not tell him it would take 20 years. He was 32 years old. He had been a mechanic all his life. His hands knew how to fix things, how to make broken machines work again. But on Velos 9, there was no future, only survival. Every day, he walked through the scrapyard, looking for parts he could sell. The alien traders who ran this place paid almost nothing, but it was enough to buy food and water, enough to stay alive for one more day. That was all Tejo could hope for now, but he had a plan. Somewhere in this ocean of dead ships, there had to be one that still worked, one that he could repair and fly away from this frozen hell. He just needed to find it. Today, he walked further than usual. He passed the common areas where other scavengers picked through the easy wrecks. He climbed over hills of twisted metal and squeezed through gaps between giant hulls. The aliens who worked here had warned him about the deep zones. They said it was dangerous, that the old ships there were unstable. Tejo did not care. He was desperate. The sun was setting when he found it. At first, he thought it was just another pile of scrap. The ship was half buried under dirt and broken pieces of other vessels. Only a small part of its hull was visible, covered in so much dust and grime that he almost walked past it. But something made him stop. The shape was different. The curves of the hull, the way the metal panels connected, it looked familiar. It looked human. Tejo's heart beat faster. Human ships were rare on Velos 9. The aliens preferred to dump their own garbage here. Finding a human vessel meant finding technology he actually understood. He climbed down into the pit where the ship rested. Up close, it was bigger than he had thought. A medium-sized vessel, maybe 60 meters long. The design was old, very old. He had seen pictures of ships like this in history books. This thing was probably 300 years old, maybe more, but the frame looked solid. The hull had holes, yes, but they could be patched. The engines were buried under debris, but he could dig them out. This was possible. This could work. Tejo laughed out loud. For the first time in 3 months, he felt hope. He spent the next 5 days working on the ship. He cleared away the garbage that had piled on top of it. He crawled inside through a broken airlock and explored the dark corridors with a small flashlight. The interior was a mess, full of dust and fallen panels, but the basic structure was intact. The reactor was dead, but not destroyed. The life support systems were old, but repairable. It would take weeks of hard work. He would need to find parts from other wrecks, but Tejo had time. He had nothing but time. On the 5th day, he started cleaning the outside of the hull. He wanted to see what he was working with, to find any damage he might have missed. He scrubbed at the thick layer of dirt and corrosion with a rough cloth, revealing the gray metal underneath. He was working on the bow of the ship when his cloth caught on something. He looked closer and saw there were letters carved into the hull. He scrubbed harder, his hands moving faster now. The dust fell away. The letters appeared one by one. H, E, S, S. Tejo stopped breathing. H, Y, E, R, I. Below the name, he could see a symbol. An iron flower with sharp petals. He knew that symbol. Everyone who grew up human knew that symbol. The iron orchid of the 7th Fleet. Tejo sat back on the cold metal, his mind spinning. The 7th Fleet was a legend. Every human child learned about them in school. 300 years ago, during the Great War, the 7th Fleet had fought the most important battle in human history, the Battle of Crimson Gate. 40,000 refugees were trying to escape through a space gate. The enemy fleet was coming to destroy them. The Seventh Fleet stood in the way. They were outnumbered 10-1. They fought for 11 hours straight. Most of them died. But they held the line long enough for every single refugee ship to escape. Among all the ships of the Seventh Fleet, one was the most famous, the HFY. She was the last ship standing. When all the others had been destroyed, she kept fighting alone. She held the gate until the final refugee made it through, and then she disappeared. Her wreck was never found. Her crew of 847 souls was declared lost. Monuments were built in their honor across 12 star systems. Songs were written about their sacrifice. The HFY became a symbol of everything humanity could be when it mattered most. And now Taeho was sitting on her hull. His grandfather had told him stories about the HFY when he was a little boy. Grandfather Dong-hae had served in the military during that era. He kept a small model of the ship on his desk until the day he died. He used to say that the HFY was proof that humans were special, that when the universe tried to crush them, they pushed back harder. Taeho had loved those stories. He had dreamed about finding the lost ship when he was young and stupid. And now, somehow, impossibly, that childhood dream was real. He should report this. He knew that. There would be a reward for finding a ship like this. Maybe enough to clear his debts and buy his freedom, but he also knew what would happen next. The aliens who ran Velos 9 did not care about human history. To them, this was just another pile of valuable metal. They would tear the HFY apart and sell the pieces. The last resting place of 800 heroes would become spare parts for alien freighters. Taeho could not let that happen. He stood up slowly, looking at the name carved into the hull. The letters were faded but still readable after 3 centuries. The ship had waited here, forgotten and alone, buried under garbage like she meant nothing. But she meant everything. Taeho made his decision. He was not just going to repair this ship. He was going to save her. He was going to take the HFY home, back to human space, where people would remember what she had done. It was crazy. It was impossible. He had no money, no crew, no supplies. He was one man against an entire moon of alien scavengers. But the crew of the HFY had faced worse odds. They had looked at certain death and said no. They had held the line against an armada. Taeho could hold the line against a junkyard. He picked up his tools and got back to work. The wind was cold and the night was coming. But he did not feel it anymore. He had a purpose now. He had a mission. The HFY was coming home. Taeho worked through the night. He could not sleep even if he wanted to. His mind was on fire with what he had found. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw those letters carved into the hull. HFY. The name felt like magic. By morning, he had cleared the main airlock and forced it open. The door screamed as the old metal moved for the first time in centuries. Dust poured out like water from a broken dam. Taeho covered his face and waited for it to settle. Inside, the ship was dark and silent. His flashlight cut through the black like a small sword. The corridors were narrow, built for efficiency rather than comfort. This was a warship, designed to fight and die. Nothing here was pretty, but to Taeho, it was beautiful. He walked slowly, carefully, treating every step like he was entering a temple. In a way, he was. 847 people had lived and died on this ship. Their ghosts deserved respect. The first rooms he found were storage areas. Empty containers lined the walls, their contents long gone or rotted away. He moved on, heading deeper into the ship. Then he found the crew quarters. Taeho stopped at the entrance. The room was exactly as its owners had left it. Bunks were still made, blankets folded neatly. Personal items sat on small shelves beside each bed. A book here. A small toy there. Pictures taped to the walls. Their colors faded but still visible. These people had been alive. They had families and dreams and favorite foods. And one day, they had gone to battle knowing they would not come back. Taeho walked between the bunks slowly. He felt like an intruder, like he had no right to be here. But he kept walking. He needed to see. He needed to understand. On one bunk, he found a child's drawing. A small piece of paper, yellow with age, showing a stick-figure family in front of a house. The words at the bottom said, "Come home soon, Daddy. Love. Minji." Taeho's vision blurred. He blinked hard and kept moving. On another bunk, there was a half-written letter. The handwriting was neat and careful. "My dear Sumin, by the time you read this, I will probably be gone. Please do not be sad for too long. What we are doing here is important. 40,000 people will live because of what we do today. That is worth more than one life. That is worth more than..." The letter ended there. The writer never finished it. Taeho wondered if Sumin ever got to read even this much. He found dog tags on several bunks, small metal plates with names and numbers stamped into them. He did not take any. They belonged here. After the crew quarters, he found the medical bay. Empty beds, broken equipment, old bloodstains on the floor. The battle had been fierce. People had suffered here. Further on, he found the engine room. It was a mess of burned wires and broken parts, but the main reactor was still there, damaged but not destroyed. Taeho's experienced eyes looked over everything. It could be fixed. It would take time and parts, but it could be done. Finally, after hours of exploration, he reached the bridge. The command center of the Hyeri was smaller than he expected. A captain's chair in the middle, surrounded by workstations for navigation, weapons, communications, and engineering. The windows at the front were black, covered with dirt from outside. Taeho walked to the captain's chair and stood there for a long moment. Someone had sat here 300 years ago and made the decision to stay and fight. Someone had watched their friends die one by one and refused to run. Someone had given everything so strangers could live. He noticed a small console beside the chair. A data storage unit, old but possibly still functional. His hands shook as he connected his portable device and tried to access it. For several minutes, nothing happened. Then, with a soft click, the system came alive. Files appeared on his screen. Logs, reports, recordings, the captain's personal records. The first recording was dated 3 days before the battle. A woman's face appeared. She was young, maybe 35, with tired eyes but a strong voice. Her uniform marked her as Captain Park Jisoo. "Captain's log," she said. "We have received orders to join the defense at Crimson Gate. Intelligence says the enemy fleet is massive. At least 200 ships against our 23. Command is not giving us false hope. They say this will be a delaying action. Our job is to buy time for the evacuation." She paused, looking away from the camera. "I have told the crew. They understand what this means. Not one person has asked to leave. I am proud of them. More proud than I can say." Taeho played the next recording. It was from the day of the battle. Captain Jisoo looked different now. Her face was covered with sweat and dirt. Behind her, alarms were screaming and lights were flashing. "We have lost engines 3 and 4, hull breaches on decks 7 through 12. The Haenel and the Daesung are gone. We are one of 6 ships still fighting." She coughed, wiping blood from her lip. "But the convoy is still running. They are almost through the gate. We just need to hold for 10 more minutes. 10 more minutes." The recording ended. Taeho found the next one, time-stamped an hour later. The bridge was on fire in this recording. Only emergency lights were on. Captain Jisoo was alone. Her arm was wrapped in bloody bandages. "We are the last ship. Everyone else is gone. The enemy has surrounded us. They are demanding our surrender." She laughed. It was not a happy sound. "Surrender. My crew did not die so I could surrender. The convoy has 3 more minutes until they clear the gate. 3 minutes. We can give them that." The final recording was time-stamped 3:47. Captain Jisoo looked peaceful now. The fires behind her had died down to smoke. The alarms had stopped. Everything was quiet. "They made it," she said softly. "All 40,000. Every single ship got through. I just watched the last one disappear into the gate." She smiled, tears running down her face. "If anyone finds this, if anyone ever hears these words, please tell them. Tell them the Hyeri never broke. Tell them we held the line. Tell them that 847 ordinary people looked death in the face and did not blink." She reached toward the camera. "My name is Park Jisoo. I was captain of the HES Hyeri. I am about to give the order to shut down all systems and drift. Maybe the enemy will think we are dead. Maybe someday, someone will find us." She paused. It was an honor. Every moment, every sacrifice. It was all worth it. The recording ended. Taeho sat in the captain's chair, his face wet with tears. He did not know how long he sat there. The ship was silent around him, keeping its secrets, holding its ghosts. Now he understood something important. The Hyeri had not drifted into this scrapyard by accident. After the battle, alien salvagers must have found her floating in space. They had not known what she was. To them, she was just another dead ship, worth a few credits in scrap metal. They had sold her to Velos 9, like garbage. For 300 years, the Hyeri had waited here, forgotten, abandoned, buried under the trash of 100 alien civilizations, but she had held the line. Even in death, she had kept the faith. Taeho stood up slowly. He touched the captain's chair with gentle fingers. "I hear you, Captain," he said to the empty bridge. "I understand now, and I promise, I will finish what you started. I will take you home." The ship did not answer. But somehow, Taeho felt like she was listening. He had a lot of work to do. Word spread through the scrapyard like fire. A human was rebuilding an old warship in the deep zone. The alien workers laughed about it at first. They said he was crazy. They said the ship was too old, too broken, too far gone. They made bets on how long it would take before he gave up or died. Taeho did not care what they said. He worked from sunrise to sunset, and sometimes through the night. He stripped parts from other wrecks and carried them on his back through the frozen valleys of garbage. His hands became covered with cuts and burns. His body grew thin from not eating enough. But he did not stop. 3 weeks after finding the Hyeri, he had patched most of the hull breaches. The outer skin of the ship was a patchwork of different metals now. Ugly but functional. The corridors were cleared of debris, some of the lights even worked again, but he was running out of parts. The things he needed were rare and expensive. The alien traders charged too much, and Taeho had almost no money left. His progress was slowing down. That was when Yuna found him. She arrived on a cold night when the wind was howling outside. Taeho was working in the engine room, trying to connect power cables with frozen fingers. He heard footsteps in the corridor and grabbed a metal pipe. Nobody came to the deep zone after dark, not unless they wanted trouble. A woman appeared in the doorway. She was young, maybe 25, with short black hair and sharp eyes. She was dressed in the practical clothes of a spacer, with a pilot's jacket covered in patches. She raised her hands when she saw the pipe in his grip. "Easy," she said. "I am not here to fight." Taeho did not lower the pipe. "Who are you? How did you find this place? Everyone on Velos 9 is talking about the crazy human with the old warship." "I wanted to see for myself." She looked around the engine room, her eyes evaluating everything. "I am Yuna. I am a pilot." "Well, a smuggler actually. I stopped here for fuel." "Good for you. Now leave." Yuna did not leave. Instead, she walked past him into the engine room, looking at the systems he was trying to repair. She touched the reactor casing with familiar hands. "This is a Kang series reactor," she said. "Old design, but reliable. You have replaced the coolant lines with parts from a Veloci freight hauler. Creative. But the pressure ratings do not match. You will blow yourself up if you are not careful." Taeho stared at her. "How do you know that?" "I told you. I am a pilot. A pilot who does not understand her engines is a dead pilot." She turned to face him. "Now, are you going to tell me why you are rebuilding a 300-year-old warship? Or do I have to guess?" Taeho was silent for a long moment. He did not trust easily. Life had taught him that trust was a weakness. But something about this woman felt different. She looked at the Hyeri with respect, not greed. "Come with me," he said finally. "I will show you something." He led her to the bow of the ship, to the place where he had first discovered the name. His cleaning work had revealed more details now. The letters stood out clearly against the gray metal. Below them, the iron orchid symbol was visible, scarred but proud. Yuna's face changed when she saw it. Her confident expression disappeared. Her mouth fell open. "This is impossible," she whispered. The Hyeri was lost. Everyone knows the Hyeri was lost. She was not lost. She was forgotten. Sold to this junkyard like a piece of trash. Yuna touched the name with trembling fingers. "My great-grandmother served in the 7th Fleet. Not on this ship, but on her sister ship, the Dasam. She survived the battle. She used to tell me stories about the Hyeri, about how she held the gate alone at the end, about how the last thing the convoy saw before jumping to safety was the Hyeri's guns still firing." She turned to Taeho with wet eyes. "You cannot fly this ship alone. It is impossible. I know. But I have to try." Yuna was quiet for a long time, looking at the name on the hull. Then she took a deep breath and straightened her shoulders. "I have contacts," she said. "Smuggler contacts. People who can get parts that are hard to find. If we are going to do this, we need to do it right." She looked at him with fierce determination. "I am in." From that day, everything changed. Yuna was not just talk. She knew people across 3 systems who owed her favors. Within a week, parts started arriving. Power converters, navigation chips, weapon components, things Taeho could never have found on his own. Together, they worked twice as fast. Taeho handled the mechanical systems, while Yuna focused on electronics and software. They slept in shifts, taking turns, watching for trouble. The alien overseers had started to notice their activities. It would not be long before someone came to investigate. 1 month into their partnership, they made a breakthrough. Taeho was working on the main computer system, trying to restore basic functions. The hardware was old and damaged, but the core was still intact. He connected a power line and waited. Nothing happened. He tried again. Still nothing. "Maybe the system is completely dead," Yuna said from behind him. "No, there is power getting through. Something is blocking it." He dug deeper into the machine, checking every connection. And then, he found it. A small memory core, separate from the main system, protected behind layers of shielding. The crew had hidden it on purpose. They wanted it to survive. Taeho connected the core to his portable display. The screen flickered. Static filled the image, and then a voice spoke. "Warning, unknown user detected. Please identify yourself." The voice was female, calm, and slightly artificial. An AI. The ship had an AI. Taeho's heart pounded. "My name is Kang Taeho. I am a mechanic. I am trying to restore this ship." Silence. Then the voice spoke again, confused this time. "Mechanic? This is a military vessel. Only authorized personnel are permitted." A pause. "Where is Captain Park? Why is she not responding to my calls?" Taeho and Yuna looked at each other. How do you tell an AI that 300 years have passed? That everyone she knew is dead? "What is your name?" Taeho asked gently. "I am the HES Hyeri Integrated Combat System. The crew calls me Hyeri." "Hyeri," Taeho said slowly. "I need to tell you something. It is going to be hard to hear. Can you listen?" "I am listening." Taeho took a deep breath. "The battle is over. The Battle of Crimson Gate. It ended 300 years ago. Humanity won. The refugees you protected, all 40,000 of them, they escaped safely. They built colonies. They had children and grandchildren. Millions of people are alive today because of what you did." Silence. 300 years? Hyeri's voice was different now. Smaller. "But that means, Captain Park, the crew, they are gone," Taeho said softly. "I am sorry. They have been gone for a very long time. But they completed the mission. You completed the mission. The convoy survived. Every single ship." More silence. When Hayeri spoke again, her voice was steady. I remember the end of the battle. The captain ordered me to shut down all systems and drift. She wanted to hide us from the enemy. She said maybe someday someone would find us. A pause. You found us. I did. Why? Tejo smiled sadly. Because you were forgotten. Because you spent 300 years in a garbage dump while everyone thought you were lost forever. Because you deserve better than that. Hayeri processed this for several seconds. The Hayeri held the line. The mission was successful. The crew fulfilled their duty. Yes, they did. Then the mission is complete. Tejo shook his head. No. Not yet. There is one more thing we need to do. We need to take you home. Back to human space. So people can remember what happened here. So the crew can finally rest. Hayeri was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was stronger. I would like that. I would like to go home. Tejo smiled and put his hand on the console. Then let us get back to work. They had run out of time. Tejo was welding a panel on the upper deck when Yuna's voice crackled through his communicator. She sounded scared. And Yuna never sounded scared. We have a problem. A big one. Get to the bridge now. He dropped his tools and ran. When he reached the bridge, Yuna was standing at the sensor console. Her face was pale in the blue light of the displays. The overseers know, she said. I just intercepted their communications. They finally figured out what we are doing here. They have declared the ship stolen property. They are sending hunters. Tejo's blood went cold. How many? 6 ships, fast ones. They will be here in 4 hours. 4 hours. The Hayeri was maybe 90% ready. The engines were working, but not at full power. The weapons were online, but half of them were untested. The life support was stable, but just barely. It was not enough time. It was not nearly enough time. Hayeri, Tejo called out. Can you hear me? I am here. The AI's voice came from speakers throughout the bridge. Over the past weeks, they had restored most of her systems. She was still damaged, still missing pieces of her memory. But she was awake and aware. I have heard the news. 6 hunter vessels. Estimated speed suggests they are Korvac-class pursuit ships. Fast, lightly armed, designed for capturing damaged vessels. Can we fight them? In my current state? No. Direct combat would result in our destruction within 7 minutes. Yuna slammed her fist against the console. Then what do we do? We cannot just give up. Hayeri was quiet for a moment. When she spoke again, her voice was different. Colder. More focused. I did not say we cannot survive. I said we cannot fight directly. There is a difference. A pause. I held against the Crimson Armada for 11 hours. 6 pursuit ships are not the Crimson Armada. Tejo felt a chill run down his spine. What are you suggesting? What? What are you suggesting? We run. We hide. We use every trick I learned in 3 years of war. And when they make mistakes, we make them pay. There was no more time for discussion. Tejo and Yuna strapped themselves into the pilot and co-pilot seats. The engines hummed as power flowed through systems that had been dead for centuries. All stations report ready, Hayeri announced. Life support stable. Engines at 63% capacity. Weapons at 47%. Shields at 22%. That is not enough, Yuna muttered. It will have to be enough. Initiating launch sequence. The Hayeri shook as she rose from her grave. 300 years of dust and debris fell away from her hull. The scrapyard around them lit up with alarm signals. Alien workers ran for cover as the ancient warship climbed into the gray sky. Tejo watched through the forward window as Velos 9 shrank below them. He had spent 3 months trapped on that frozen moon. He had thought he would die there. Now, he was leaving in a legend. Contact detected, Hayeri reported. 6 vessels approaching from the outer system. They have increased speed. Estimated interception in 37 minutes. 37 minutes. Not enough time to escape to open space. Not enough time to reach the nearest gate. Hayeri, is there anywhere we can hide? Scanning. A moment passed. There is an asteroid field approximately 12 minutes away. Dense composition. Many sensor shadows. It will make pursuit difficult. Do it. The Hyrie turned and accelerated. Her old engines screamed with the effort. Warning lights flickered across the bridge, but she held together. They reached the asteroid field with 5 minutes to spare. Hyrie dove into the chaos of tumbling rocks without hesitation. She weaved between massive boulders, skimmed past spinning debris, and found shadows where no scanner could reach. The hunters followed them in. For the next hour, it was a game of cat and mouse. The pursuit ships were faster, but Hyrie knew how to use the terrain. She predicted their movements, anticipated their searches, and stayed one step ahead. "How are you doing this?" Una asked in amazement as they slipped through a narrow gap between two colliding asteroids. Pattern recognition. Enemy vessels are using standard Korvax search protocols. I have analyzed their behavior and identified 17 predictable elements. As long as they follow protocol, I can stay ahead of them. And when they stop following protocol, then we improvise. The hunters were getting frustrated. Tejo could hear their communications on the open channel. They were arguing with each other, blaming each other for the failures. One ship broke formation to chase a sensor ghost. Another took a risky shortcut and clipped an asteroid, damaging its engines. 5 ships now. But the chase was taking its toll on the Hyrie too. Her damaged systems were straining under the pressure. Coolant leaks sprayed mist into the engineering bay. Power fluctuations caused the lights to flicker. Una worked frantically to keep everything running. "We cannot keep this up forever," she said. "Something is going to break." "I know," Tejo replied. "Hyrie, we need a way out. Working on it." The AI was silent for several seconds. "I have found something. There is a gap in the asteroid field, approximately 4 minutes ahead. If we can reach it, we will have a clear path to the Kellen transit point. From there, we can jump to neutral space." "What is the catch?" "The gap is narrow. The hunters will see us when we make our run. We will be exposed for approximately 90 seconds. 90 seconds under fire from 5 ships. With shields at 20%. Can we make it? Unknown. Probability of survival is approximately 34%. Quote, Una laughed bitterly. Better odds than the 7th Fleet had at Crimson Gate. Tejo gripped the controls tighter. Then we take the shot. Hyrie. Prepare for full acceleration on my mark. They burst from the asteroid field like a bullet from a gun. The hunters saw them immediately. Energy beams lanced through the darkness. Reaching for the fleeing warship, Hyrie danced. That was the only word for it. She rolled and spun and twisted in ways that should have been impossible for a ship her size. Shots that should have hit missed by meters. Attacks that should have been fatal glanced off at angles. How? Tejo gasped as another beam passed centimeters from the hull. I remember every battle I ever fought, Hyrie said calmly. Every shot fired. Every hit taken. I have 3 years of combat experience stored in my memory banks. These hunters have never faced anything like me. A shot got through. The ship shuddered. Alarms screamed. Hull breach on deck 4. Sealing now. Another hit. Engine 2 is offline. Compensating. Una cried out as a console exploded near her station. Her arm was bleeding, but she kept working. 50 seconds to the transit point, Hyrie announced. Another hit. The shields failed completely. The Hyrie was naked now. Her bare hull exposed to enemy fire. 30 seconds. A hunter got too close, trying to cut them off. Hyrie's weapons, dormant until now, suddenly came alive. 2 precise shots hit the hunter's engines. The ship spun away. Crippled. 4 ships now. 20 seconds. The transit point loomed ahead, a shimmering gateway to safety. The hunters were falling behind, unable to match the Hyrie's desperate speed. 10 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The universe twisted around them. The stars stretched into lines. And then, they were through. Neutral space. Safe space. The hunters could not follow here without causing an international incident. Tejo slumped in his chair, breathing hard. Yuna was laughing and crying at the same time. Even Hyri's voice sounded relieved. Transit successful, all systems stable, we are safe. They had made it. Against impossible odds, they had escaped. But Tejo knew this was not the end. The news of their escape would spread. People would hear about the ancient warship that had risen from the dead. Questions would be asked. Stories would be told. The HFY was no longer just a ship, she was becoming a symbol. And symbols, Tejo knew, could change the galaxy. The journey to Earth took 17 days. 17 days of limping through space in a wounded ship. 17 days of constant repairs and sleepless nights. 17 days of watching the news feeds explode with their story. It started small. A rumor on a backwater station. A blurry image captured by a transport ship. A whisper that spread from pilot to pilot, colony to colony. The HFY is alive. The HFY is coming home. By the third day, it was on every news channel. Historians argued about whether it was real. Veterans wept openly on live broadcasts. The descendants of the original crew demanded answers. Politicians made speeches about heroism and sacrifice. Tejo ignored all of it. He had no time for fame. The ship needed constant attention just to keep flying. Yuna was still recovering from her injuries, her arm wrapped in bandages. But she refused to rest. And Hyri, the AI, had grown quieter as they approached human space. She was processing something, preparing for something. On the 10th day, the first escort ship appeared. It was a small civilian vessel, an old freighter that had no business being this far from the main routes. But its pilot had heard the news and had come anyway. He pulled alongside the HFY and broadcast a simple message. This is the cargo ship Bright Morning. I served in the Navy 30 years ago. My grandfather told me stories about the 7th Fleet. I am here to escort you home. Before Tejo could respond, another ship appeared. Then another. Then a dozen more. By the time they reached the outer edge of the solar system, over 200 ships were flying with them. Freighters and yachts, and personal shuttles. Military vessels that had come without orders. Ships from a dozen different nations, all flying together. The convoy grew larger every hour. Yuna stood at the window, watching the lights of the other ships surrounding them like stars. They came, she whispered. They all came. Tejo nodded, his throat too tight to speak. When they finally entered Earth orbit, the scene was overwhelming. Thousands of ships filled the space around the blue planet. Military cruisers formed an honor guard, their weapons silent, their flags flying. Civilian stations had turned off their lights to make the HFY more visible against the darkness. And everywhere, on every screen and every channel, the same words repeated. The HFY has come home. Tejo was asked to speak. He refused at first. He was just a mechanic. Just a man who had found a ship in a junkyard. He had not fought any battles. He had not saved any lives. The real heroes were the 847 people whose bones had turned to dust 3 centuries ago. But Yuna pushed him forward. They need to hear from you. You brought her back. You finished the mission. That matters. So Tejo stood on the restored bridge of the HFY, facing a camera that would broadcast to billions of people across human space. His hands were shaking, his voice was unsteady. But he spoke anyway. I did not save this ship, he said slowly. The HFY was never lost. We just forgot where to look. He paused, gathering his thoughts. For 300 years, she waited on a junk moon. Not for rescue. Not for repair. She waited because her mission was not over. The crew of this ship gave everything to protect 40,000 strangers, mothers and children and old people they had never met. They asked for nothing in return. They just wanted us to remember. He looked around the bridge, at the consoles where heroes had once sat, at the captain's chair that still bore the marks of battle. I am just a mechanic. I fix things that are broken. When I found the HFY, I thought I was just finding a way to escape a bad situation. I did not know I was finding a legend. I did not know I was finding proof that ordinary people can do extraordinary things when it matters. His voice grew stronger. Captain Park Jisoo and her crew held the line against impossible odds. They did not do it for glory or rewards. They did it because it was the right thing to do. That is what being human means. That is what the Seventh Fleet taught us 300 years ago. And that is what we should never, ever forget. He stepped back from the camera. The HFY is home now. Let her rest. Let her crew finally be at peace. And let us try to be worthy of what they gave us. The broadcast ended. For a moment, there was silence across human space. Then the cheering began. 3 days later, the HFY was placed in permanent dock beside the monument of the Seventh Fleet. It was a special place, built centuries ago to honor the ships that had died at Crimson Gate. Now, for the first time, there was an actual ship to see. Not a model, not a replica, the real thing. Stonemasons worked day and night to carve the names of the original crew into a new memorial wall. 847 names, each one carefully researched and verified. No longer listed as missing in action, now listed as heroes who had given their lives in victory. Taeho visited the bridge one last time before the ship was closed to the public. He walked slowly through the corridors he had come to know so well. He touched the walls that still bore the scars of ancient battles. He breathed air that had once filled the lungs of legends. "HFY," he said softly. "Are you there?" "I am always here." The AI's voice came from all around him, warm and familiar. "I have been thinking about what comes next." "What do you mean?" "I was designed for war. For battle. For protecting people in times of crisis. But the war ended long ago. My crew is gone. What is my purpose now?" Taeho sat down in the captain's chair. It was the first time he had allowed himself to sit there. "Maybe your purpose is to remember," he said. "To tell people what happened here. To make sure the crew is never forgotten again." HFY was quiet for a moment. "I would like that. I will keep their memories alive. Every name. Every face. Every story." A pause. "Thank you, Taeho, for finding us, for bringing us home, for finishing what Captain Park started." Taeho smiled, his eyes wet with tears. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small object. It was an old military medal, tarnished with age. It had belonged to his grandfather, Dong-hae, who had kept it beside his model of the HFY until the day he died. Taeho placed the medal on the arm of the captain's chair. "No," he said quietly. "Thank you. For holding the line. For showing us what humans can be when it really counts." He stood up and walked toward the exit. At the door, he stopped and looked back one last time. "Rest well, Captain Park. Rest well, all of you. You earned it." The lights on the bridge dimmed softly as he left. Years passed. Taeho never returned to his old life. He became the official curator of the HFY, guiding millions of visitors through her halls, telling her story to new generations. Children sat in wonder as he described the Battle of Crimson Gate. Veterans saluted the names on the memorial wall. People came from every corner of human space just to touch the hull of a legend. Yuna joined a new organization called the Memorial Fleet. They were volunteers who traveled the galaxy searching for other forgotten ships, other lost pieces of human history. She said she was paying forward what the HFY had given her. She said everyone deserved to be remembered. And deep in the heart of the ship, the AI called HFY kept her eternal watch. She remembered every crew member who had served on her decks. She preserved their stories and their voices and their dreams. When visitors came, she shared those memories freely. Sometimes, late at night when the crowds were gone and the ship was quiet, she would play the old recordings. Captain Park Jisoo's final words would echo through empty corridors. "If anyone finds this, tell them the HFY never broke. Tell them we held the ship that had held the line for 11 hours at Crimson Gate. The ship that had waited 300 years to be found. The ship that had finally come home." Her name glowed softly on the bow, visible to every ship that passed by Earth. HFY, forever remembered, forever honored, forever home.